niggas know the business. We out here tripping. Westside, it's the 70s. We run this shit down here. Hey, babe, I'm pressing play all day.
Don't wanna see me win, she must be crazy. Still buying all that gold, I need diamonds, baby. Busting so much, I am not Tina. Bitch, we ain't romantic like Martin and Gina.
Sorry, bro. 7-4, who your name ain't? Babe ain't nothing. I'm hoping, nigga. Your name Junior. I'm 7-4.
Rap news, street politics, the best hood channel on YouTube, and we back on the west side of South Central on Hoover Street, from the 50s to the 100s. Now we know the Hoovers don't need any introduction, the most notorious set in the city. We know the Hoovers have 8 different active hoods that are beefing with at least 45 individual gangs in the city of LA alone. Now there's always speculation as to why the Hoovers are arguably the most hated set in the city, and each side kind of has their own version to why that is. But in actuality, if you sit back and look at it, the Hoovers are really the glue of the whole city. Without the Hoovers, where would LA be gangbanging wise? As we see, they go right through the middle of the east side and the west side, holding this shit together with the current political structure that's been set up. And the city went up over Memorial Day weekend, where it said 4 homicides transpired with implications involving the Hoovers, the Gangsta Crips, and the neighborhood Crips. We seen a murder on the 9800 block of Van Ness, right on the borderline between Inglewood family, the 9-0s, the Hard Times, and the Avenue Pyrus, where allegedly somebody from Harlem was hit. After that, allegedly, the UGs slid to the Northside 80s and performed a double homicide on Florence and Dalton. And then another man was killed on 52nd and Hoover in the middle of Five Deuce Hoover Gangsta Crip hood. So a lot is going on right now on the west side. Now we're gonna break down each individual Hoover set, again from the 50s to the 100s, and shine the light on everything that's coming out of each one of them sets, and really tell the story from the Hoover perspective. Now in that perspective, we have multiple different scenarios that we're gonna break down in terms of aggression, where we see stories of the Hoovers jumping out on their man, realizing they got the wrong target, and still getting off on them anyways. Other situations where we see people gotta go out and commit quintuple murders because of the Hoover reputation. And we see 2 of the most hated hoods in the city coexisting in the same neighborhoods from the 50s to the 100s in the Hoovers and 18th Street, press and play and pushing people out their hood. Now, some of the key factors that go along with the Hoovers point back to their identity with Hoover Street. So the main thing we see is from the 50s to the 100s is Hoover before everything, which is somewhat contrary to what we see from a lot of different hoods in the city. Hoover comes before the Crippin, the Crippin, and the Gangsta Crip, which is why they OGs deem Hoover Street to be the evolution of Crippin and gangbanging and all. Now with other sets throughout the city, we don't see the same unity that we see in the Hoovers. So we know with the neighborhoods, neighborhood Crip is to the forefront, but Hoover is not something that you can turn like some hoods have turned neighborhood. For example, most recently, the Menlos. They used to be gangsters and now they're neighborhood. And there's some hoods that rock with the neighborhoods, pretty much push it, but don't have the neighborhood on it. But overall, most hoods in the city push the individual set, while all Hoover sets push 50s to the 100s. And membership is somewhat interchangeable. And all 8 Hoover sets are pretty much paired up. The 5 deuces go with the 5 nines, 7 foes go with the 8 trays, 9 deuces go with the 9 foes, and the 107s go with the 11 deuces. And it's all glued together under 716. Now 716 is everything from 4 tray to the 1-way. 4 tray Hoover all the way down to 11 deuce Hoover. Now there's technically no 4 tray Hoover anymore, but the 5 deuce Hoovers still do exist in the 40s. They don't just stop on 52nd. But when you add all 9 of those sets, with 4 tray being included, it equals 716, which is why that is the overall number that the Hoovers push. Now, when I say the evolution of gangbanging, when you go through these Hoover hoods, you see a lot of CK. But the way they OGs put it, Hoover can still encompass Crippin and Crimin and still push CK just like they do, because Hoover Street comes before everything. Now, where we gotta start is with the first Hoover hood that's said to have been formed in LA. The Hoovers do have somewhat of a big three. The first three Hoover sets to form, 7-4, 9 Deuce, and 8 Trey. But the first Hoover Crip set to come out was Westside 7-4 Hoover Crip, the BAYZ.
Gang, it's you a mark or a killer. Sagging with the locs, not no buster ass niggas. I'm a trophy, dead homies, I'm a nigga. Rascal, BAYZ, we is not the mother niggas. Stay strapped, a lot of niggas ain't that. I gotta thank the Lord every time I came back.
Now, I've heard many different accounts of where the Hoover and the Crippin came into play, and it seems to be common knowledge that it came with Hoover Joe, Joseph Stanley. Now, we know the 7-4s go from Florence to about 80th Street between Flower and Vermont in a neighborhood called Vermont Knolls. Now, if y'all watched the video we did on the Brims, the FHN, we spoke about most dangerous neighborhoods in the city, with Chesterfield Square and Harvard Park being number 1 and number 2. Vermont Knolls is gonna be the number 3 most dangerous neighborhood in the city, going from Normandy to the 110 between Florence and Manchester. Now, the main hoods that's gonna be here is not only 7-4, but also 8 Trey Hoover, 8 Trey Gangsta, and 18th Street, as well as 7 Trey Gangsta Crip, who's gonna control 73rd between Normandy and Vermont. And as we record this video, it did get cracking tonight over here on Florence. Not too far past Vermont, but it was on Florence and Dalton in the 8 Treys. It looked like it was for sure gang related, and it's being said that Infant Stein from UG was a part of the dudes that was sliding in the Northside 80s. So what it's looking like is the UGs was trying to find some dudes more than likely, but this is not far from the Hoovers either. But it looked like they was on offense this night and ended up taking 2 people out on Florence and Dalton. And that's crazy because Stein is a young, active member. Every time I'm on the 5, I see Stein hitting up. And there were initial reports that a 12-year-old boy was involved. I'm not sure if one of them dudes was 12, but I know 2 people were apprehended after the slide, and then Stein went down. But overall, what we see in this section is no beef between any of these hoods. So this section is really a hot spot for anybody trying to get their man that's beefing with these hoods over here. But it's said that Hoover Joe jumped off the Hoovers in about 73, 74, not only putting the H on it, but also putting a Crippin on it, as well as putting a infamous hand sign together as well. Now, the name Hoover itself was established before this time, but it wasn't no Crippin behind it, and it wasn't what it is today, or even what it was at that time when the Crippin got put on it. But the key thing we have to talk about is the relationship that they had with the 6-0s when 7-4 was derived. As we know now, the neighborhoods and the Hoovers are arguably the most bitter enemies in the city right now. But at one point, the 7-4s, like other Hoover sets at different points in time, were cool with the 6-0s. And they also shared a tight-knit bond with the 6-7s and the Menlos across Florence. Now, it's said that they was rocking with the 6-0s from about 73 to 78. And some Hoover members allege that there was also a 6 Trey Hoover in the 60s. Now, we know there were multiple different Hoover sets that aren't here today, which we gonna speak on. But the 6-0s, as you can imagine, are not fans of that account with there being a 6 Trey Hoover. Now, the bond that the 7-4s had with the 6-0s were, of course, the first one where it said that it was created up at Crenshaw High. And another was created with the 5 Deuces, which we gonna break down later. But overall, it said Hoover Joe was tired of getting into it with the Figueroa boys, which was a crew on Fig before Hoover jumped off, and that's why he started 7-4 Hoover. But Hoover Joe really sets the precedence for what the Hoovers is all about, especially when you see him today doing life without parole for a double murder. Now, it said in 2008, he killed 2 brothers over here in the 7-4s on 74th Street, where it seemingly was like a drug deal gone bad. It wasn't necessarily on no gangbanging shit, but like I said, when your founder sets a precedence like that, we know what's to come behind it with the young life. And we know a lot of names come out the 7-4s. A representative right now that be applying pressure with the music is Jay Heartless. We know he stayed dropping shit, putting on for a section. But another name that we heard about that was also hard with the rapping and the gangbanging was T-Suppa. Now, T-Suppa's murder, a lot of people have had a lot of different accounts on the internet, but we got to tell y'all exactly what happened in this situation. Now, we know Smack from 9-0 has went down for this homicide on T-Suppa. A lot of people were saying Smack caught T-Suppa after a workout at the park, and because T-Suppa dropped his location, Smack did the slide. Now, we did see Smack doing a lot with pulling up in the Hoovers with the camera, making his presence felt, but that wasn't the situation. Now, what the streets is saying is T-Suppa was trying to smack on Smack's girl, and that situation ended up getting him killed. Now, to me, it low-key sound like a setup, but I believe this is what Smack's girl told the police, is that Smack was cheating on her, so she decided to entertain some dudes that was in her DMs. One of them was T-Suppa. Now, I find it very hard to believe that she didn't know who T-Suppa was, and this is what sets off the first red flag on the setup. Now, it said that T-Suppa and Smack's girl ended up linking up. Now, one account that she felt T-Suppa was trying to move too fast with taking her down on the link up. So she asked for T-Suppa to take her back to the crib. Now, it said that when they pull up, Smack, whose real name is Tyson Bell, seen this whole situation happening. Again, I believe this is how the female put it, to of course not implicate herself if it was indeed a setup. But allegedly, Smack see T-Suppa pull up with this female on 97, which is allegedly where Smack's pops lives. And this is when Smack lets off on T-Suppa, killing him over here on September 23rd, 2020. Now, right after this murder, Smack did take credit for this hit. I can't say exactly how he went down for it, but like I said, it was alleged that it was right in front of his people's crib. And there was also speculation of this being retaliation for another murder that happened on the 9-0s where the Hoovers allegedly did it and took a picture of their results and put it out there to the internet with the dissing. So that may or may not have also been some fuel to the fire with the situation surrounding T-Suppa. And the key thing is, this situation between the Hoovers and the 9-0s is truly bigger than what some people may realize, especially some people outside of the city. Because the 9-0s used to be Hoovers. And like the story's been told many times, we've all heard the account of the 9-0s being responsible for the fallout between the neighborhoods and the gangsters. And honestly, it goes all the way back to when they were Hoovers. Now, there was a situation in the 7-4s where there was some internal conflict between their members. And it was back on April 9th, 2014, when two of their homies, Matthew Sims and Anthony Grant, had got into it. They had a dispute over at Grant's crib. Now, during that dispute, they squared up in Grant's backyard, and it said that some young life from 7-4 had surrounded Sims. Now, it seemed like Grant was the respected homie, or the homie that them young dudes was gravitating towards, or that could have just been his little crew. But once Sims felt like he was about to get packed out, he said he clutched a screwdriver in his hand and told Grant to meet him at a donut shop on 80th and Hoover. He proceeds to bail over to the donut shop and sees that Grant isn't showing up. So at this point, he goes over to another member from 7-4 House named Eric Washington. He gets over there and asks Eric Washington, hey, talk to the homie. He wanted him to talk to Grant, I guess to try to maybe administer a fair fade and calm this situation down between them. At this time, Washington stalls him out and says he got to handle some personal family business first before he addressed Grant. But the whole time, Eric Washington told police that he was trying to find a way out the set, wanted to stop dealing with the homies or whatever. So he ended up folding and talking to the people after this homicide transpired. But later that night, the police get a call and find Matthew Sims laid out with multiple shots to his body on 76 and Fig. Now, if y'all watch our videos, we talk about these detectives knowing the hood. And in that Main Street video is one detective that be taking all them cases with the Main Streets, Detective Levant. He pulled up on 76 and Fig too. Now, what's said on surveillance they seen a man riding a bike with a rifle wrapped in some clothes on his way to the murder scene, and Anthony Grant ended up going down. He ended up making statements on that jail phone saying that the police caught him on camera and it was a wrap. He went down for killing his homie. But we know this happens in all the hoods. Internal beef, not everybody's your homie. Whether you from the same block, same car or not, this just what it is. Now that takes us to the second hood that's said to have formed under the Hoover umbrella, which is 9 Deuce Hoover. The FIGGWEST, the Figgies, or the Dulos, as some may call them.
Welcome to the Snidey's part 2, it ain't the same. Yeah. I'm from where we groovy, nigga, just take his thing. Yeah. MK verse, look. Welcome to the Snidey's part 2, it ain't the same. I'm from where we groovy, nigga, just to take his chain. Yeah.
Now there's a lot of accounts as to exactly who came first or who put the Crippin on the Hoover first. Some people from 9 Deuce say 9 Deuce was the first with the Crippin, but of course, like I said, popular opinion is Hoover Joe and the 7 Foes came up with this. But the 9 Deuces claim to have got they Crippin from one of their #1 enemies right now, Underground Block Crip. And they found her being somebody named Bloodstone, who was tight with UG at the time. Again, around the same time that the 7 Foes formed in about 73, 74. Now in about 76, it was said that 7 Foe was the deepest Hoover set. But we know the 9 Deuces have the main hub for the Hoovers in Manchester Park. Now the 9 Deuce section is going from Manchester to Century between Vermont and Flower. Main block over here, of course, 88th, 92nd, Cold Nav, 87th in Denver. These are some hot blocks that exist within the 9 Deuces. But I believe they officially started on 94th Street and had to push out the Manchester Park boys to occupy the park as well. Now, before the Hoovers set up, it said that the Brims occupied this area as well. Now, we know, like we spoke on previous times, the Brims were here before the Blood movement, and they have been known to always put it down in the city. But it is said that they did occupy all the way down into this 9 Deuce area. And we do know this is the hood that started the beef with the Denver Lane Bloods. And with that being said, this is also the section that Baby B BAYZ did one of the murders in off 88th across the street from the park, just to add context to where we at. But the neighborhood itself is going to be called Vermont Vista, and LA Times has deemed it Death Alley. Now, Vermont Vista technically goes all the way from Manchester down to 120th, bordering the Raymonds past the 105, and in between Vermont and the 110. So we know the main hoods over here, 9 Deuce, 107 Hoovers, and the Denver Lanes, as well as 18th Street. Now on the most dangerous neighborhood list, Vermont Vista is number 4, coming behind Vermont Knolls with the crime rate. But the reason LA Times deemed it Death Alley is because in a 7-year time span, there was 61 murders that happened within 1,300 feet of Vermont Avenue between Manchester and Imperial. There's a lot that goes on in this section, but this is where the 9-0 Hoovers also got their start. So like I said, 9 Deuce popped up around 73, 74. It's alleged that 9 Deuce and the Hoovers as a whole, 7-4, 8-Tray, and 9 Deuce, the big 3, is the reason the crash unit in LA got started. If y'all not familiar with the crash unit, the Jump Out Boys gang unit, it said that the Hoovers were the reason for the formation of the gang unit. And because of that, a lot of sweeps started going on. And in about 97, a lot of strong dudes out of 9 Deuce was being locked up, and 9-0 Hoover was formed. Now there was 2 different 9-0 hoods. There was 9-0 Gangsta, which is by Western, where we know 9-0 neighborhood exists now, and it's 9-0 Hoover over here by Vermont in this 9 Deuce ETG section. And some of the main players that we know of today from neighborhood Rollin 90 Crip are the main players that was active from 9-0 Hoover as well. Now this situation right here is what I was saying about what would happen to the city if the Hoovers never existed. If Hoover Street never came about, 9-0 Hoover never came about, never have been a predictable fallout between Gangsta Crips and neighborhood Crips. I'ma tell you why. 9-0 Hoover ended up kicking off a beef between themselves and the 107 Selos. We're going to speak on when the 107s came into play, but at some point, it's alleged that the 9-0 Hoovers were responsible for killing the founder of 107's brother. Now, I've heard accounts of some people saying that didn't happen, and of course, others saying that it did happen. But one thing we know about the Hoovers, let them tell it, they get blamed for a lot. And at this point, it don't even matter if they did it or not, because it went up between the 9-0 Hoovers and the 107 Hoovers. Now, due to the fallout of both them Hoover sets, it said that the 9-0 Hoovers tried to somewhat be cool with the neighborhood 111s. Now, we know Westmont is just west of Vermont, occupied by the Rollin Hunters. And it said that the 9-0 gangsters were already cool with the neighborhood 111s. And I suppose that the 9-0 Hoovers, since they was beefing with Hoovers, were also trying to create some sort of alliance with the 111s. It said the 111s wasn't having it at that time, but in around 81, 82, 9-0 Hoover took the Hoover off their name. And it's also said that they started beefing with ETG as well. Now, there was accounts where a 13-year-old boy got killed in the 9-0 Hoover war with the A-Tray gangsters, where 7 dudes from A-Tray Gangsta had went down for that homicide. But nonetheless, this is when 9-0 Hoover takes the H out their name and ended up linking up with the 9-0 gangsters. Now, one side was called West Coast 90s, the other side Rollin 90s, and as we know now, they essentially came together with Westside neighborhood 9-0 Crip existing over here by Jesse Owens Park. And this seemingly was the first fracture that led to the division that we have in today's politics between the Hoovers, neighborhoods, and the Gangsta Crips. Now, it's also said that a member that was from 9-0 Hoover at the time that went on to become from neighborhood 9-0 also started 9-9 Mafia, which we know is also a hood that's somewhat in an odd position in the city, beefing with ETG, but cool with the Hoovers, as well as beefing with all the neighborhoods. But some reputable people coming out the Snideys, we know Poke. Now, we know Poke is officially from 9-4 Hoover, but we know the Snideys is 924, so Poke is still coming out this section.
Fat woods full with dead ops. G-face, the orange strains and make them stand out. They hang out, we gon' slide and make them bang out. Effing in and 4-5s will make the dead out. I'm a FIGGWEST crammer, pop up like fuck cameras. We gon' slide no drop-bys, we hop out and toe tag 'em. Bitch, 9 before the 4, but the H will really matter. Nigga, this 9 before the 4, but the H will really matter.
And we gotta shout out Poke's movement and what he trying to do with his homies in the city, man. They be applying pressure with the music. And we also know T Blue was out of 9 Deuce and 9 Too Much. Some other rappers coming out of this section. But the situation hasn't died down with the 9-0s. We just spoke about T-Suppa getting killed over here by Smack from 9-0. Another Hoover affiliate was also killed by the 9-0s recently. Now, it said that he wasn't fully from Hoover. I've heard different accounts. His people from the H, but he hang with the H. He looked like he from Hoover to me. Nonetheless, they claim him like one of their own brothers. Charles Brown, rest in peace to Ben Fraaanky. Now, he was killed over here on 89th and Western. We know this whole area is exactly where the 9-0s like to hang out because they call Hito over here 2 blocks down on the same street. That back alley behind Western is a hot spot for the 9-0s. I'm gonna just say it. Now, Ben Fraaanky was killed on May 20th, 2023 at like 2-3 in the morning over here. I think it's a little lounge over here. But the 9-0s did celebrate his homicide as well. So we know it's for sure going down still with the 9-0s and the Hoovers. And we know at the time of recording this video, it did just get cracking in this section in the 9800 block of Van Ness by Century and Van Ness, not too far from Western, where it said 4 to 5 dudes just jumped out on somebody and laid them down. So this section is definitely still going up. Another fun fact coming out the 9 Deuces, S-Bone from 40s. His step pops was also from 9 Deuce and a high-ranking reputable member from 9 Deuce as well. So we know there'll be a lot of family ties, especially between the 9-0s and the Hoovers. A lot of family ties, and it's still cracking. But with the 9 Deuces being the most notorious, we also got that federal indictment coming out this section. Operation Hoover Dam. where it was alleged 10 members and affiliates of the Hoovers went down on that meth and crack cocaine drug conspiracy that they was running off 96th and Vermont and 95th and Fig back in 2020. And the 32-count indictment came out in 2020, spearheaded by Batman and Zoe, allegedly from 9 Deuce Hoover. Now, one thing I have to applaud on this case, man, I didn't find any snitches. I didn't find nobody from Hoover taking a stand, and we know that's low-key rare in these federal indictments. Homies is always on the stand. I didn't see that. It seemed like them top 2 kept it solid. Now, there was confidential informants buying dope from these guys over here, multiple transactions, and it seemed like that's all the feds needed to convict Batman and send him to federal prison for 12 years for not only meth, crack, coke, PCP, and some firearm charges that were alleged in this indictment. So we know this 9 Deuce hood is hot, but we also seen a situation with 9 Deuce having some gunplay with the 11 Deuce Broadways. Now, like I spoke on earlier, we know the Hoovers got 45 different hoods in LA City. I'm not talking Compton, Long Beach, none of that. 45 hoods that they beefing with and very few allies. The gangsters have historically been allies to the Hoovers. Now, I believe at this time, 11 Deuce and the Hoovers are cool, but on October 29, 2016, the Broadways did press play on these dudes. And like we see every single time, the Hoovers got their get back, where it said that 11 Deuce Broadways killed DeAndre Hamilton, who was from Hoover. Now, an informant told the police that Hamilton and one of his homies had got into it with some dudes from Broadway. And this led somebody from 9 Deuce named Tyree Smith to hold a meeting at his mom's house, where it said that about 15 to 20 dudes was in attendance plotting to get back. Now, the next morning, October 29th, 2016, surveillance says they seen Tyrese's car pull up around 111th and Broadway, where a dude named Marquise Thomas had just sat down at the bus stop at around 9:30 that morning. And at this time, it says Smith gets out, ends up killing Marquise Thomas, believing he's a member from 11 Deuce Broadway. Now, of course, reports say he wasn't from 11 Deuce. I can't say if he was or he wasn't. But after the move, the crazy thing is Tyrese ended up running into Marquise's mom and his 2 sisters by a shoe store in Inglewood. His mom and his sisters had his memorial on their t-shirts, and it said that they had a weird interaction with Tyree Smith, with one of his sisters recognizing him from social media, knowing he had affiliation to the Hoover member that had got killed the day before her brother got killed. She said she wrote down a license plate. I don't know what was said between them or exactly what threw her off, but she said he was staring at the memorial on her t-shirt in a funny way, and he ended up going down for the murder of Marquise Thomas. Now, again, I say I don't know if Marquise was officially from 11 Deuce, but I do believe 11 Deuce and the Hoovers do not beef at this time in the city. And we know both 5 Deuce Broadway and 5 Deuce Hoover are also on good terms. Now, there is another spot in the 9 Deuces, and I'm gonna be real, I don't know exactly what this is, but I be seeing these niggas right here. They be outside on 89th and Vermont at that Monster Burger. Now, I've heard that this is technically back west 5 Deuce between Bud Long and Vermont and 88th and 90th, really right behind that Monster Burger. I be seeing niggas hanging out, but the Hoovers do be hitting up at that Louis Market on 92nd and Bud Long as well. But nonetheless, 9 Deuce extremely active in this section, a part of the Big 3. Now, the third Hoover set that was said to have popped up in the city could have been simultaneously with the 7 Folds and the 9 Deuces. You know, there's a lot of reports, especially from dudes from these hoods, that say when things formed, but it said that A-Tray Hoover came around about 74, 75, also known as the Rascals or Shooter Gang.
That boy tried to diss, we had to blow his cap. And this Saudi thing can't choose your lane, I'm swerving back to back. Niggas always tough with the thumbs and never bust strap. Catch me in the trenches like you dumb, shooting at your dad. I ain't got no ops, them niggas bums, man, shit so sad. Hit the road with nothing and came back with the biggest bag. I left to stay with Bay and came home to these niggas mad. I'm in and out of foreigns, might pull up in the latest jazz.
Now, something that we see with the Hoovers, man, the unity between them is on another level. And we pretty much see between all 8 sets, each set is paired up. The 8 trays, of course, also existed in Vermont Knolls with the 7 foes. That's gonna be their running mate. Rascal BAYZ, the tray for Hoovers. Now the ETHs go from 80th to Manchester between Vermont and the 110. And it was said to set up shop in this area, the ETHs had to push out the Fig Boys, the same ones that Hoover Joe pushed out the 70s when he started Hoover Crips. So everything turned Hoover Crip from Florence to Century. Now, you know, we got a lot of big names that come out the shady 80s. Young Threat, we know Treyways from that trade, and Self-Made Buddha. And we can't forget King off Manchester with that Manchester anthem.
Land of the A's and we janky, we'll check your sauce. 10 bands for a headshot and we gon' stand on it. My cousin Wooty wham nigga, land only. Fucker said trophy nigga, long live the dead homie. Manchester Park and anything with this lead on me. 10 bands for a headshot and we gon' stand on it. My cousin Wooty wham nigga, land only.
Those are a few rappers coming out this section, like I said, applying pressure. I would say with the rapping, it's a 3-way tie in the city right now between East Coast, the niggas they got coming out the 6-pack, my favorite being Low 5 and 11-8, the Hoovers, I'm fucking with BMG, Jay Heartless, Threat, Poke, Treyway, Jap 5, and the Hunnits with Thirsty O, Deezy, Tunchi, Snoopy Harvard, Uzi. I just be needing a little bit more consistency out the Hunnits, but I can't forget the 40s either. They kind of falling off with the rapping right now. But man, all these sections got some heat coming out the city, man. But if y'all watched our Rollin' 100 video, we spoke about somebody over there that had got killed on 111th named Bone. It's alleged that the Hoovers pressed play on some get back for Trey Soldier, aka Brayon Dirk. Now I believe Trey Soldier and Threat are gonna share the same namesake coming out of ETH. But Trey Soldier, rest in peace, lost his life on May 6, 2020 on Hoover and Slauson, where it's alleged that the Hunters rolled up by the car wash over here and killed Trey Soldier. Now the same day, it's alleged the Hoovers slid right back to the Hunters and killed Bone, a top member, that same day. Now it's said that Bone also had a body on the Selos, and it's alleged in the streets that the A-Trays really put it down with this one. So 4 days later, we see the Hunters come back and kill Darion Carter, who was 16 years old. And this is what really sent the Hunters up in 2020. We know Tunchi 5 also got put in a wheelchair behind this shit. It said that the Hunters was sliding on a daily. And we've heard multiple accounts with people talking about having the Hoovers as their enemy. We've heard at one point enemies of the Hoovers saying that the Hoovers slide 10 times in one day. But it got to the point where it's alleged that the Hunters shot up S2 funeral from Hoover. And they said that the Hunters were also responsible for killing S2 and BK from 7-4. That was in August and September of 2020. So we're talking about less than 6 months, the city went up. And this just goes to show that, contrary to popular belief, it be looking like the Hoovers had their back against the wall, but they really don't, man. They press and play, they playing offense, and of course, playing defense because they get back. Now we know we did the video on the Hunters. We know they get cracking. It's truly no winners. A lot of these sections be equally matched. But those situations right there is what really turned the A-Trays up with losing Trey Soldier. Now the next hood that got formed after the big three in 7-4 A-Tray and 9 Deuce is 107 Salo Hoover.
And my whole team wildin' out. Slid through the suckers, had they whole scene hiding out. Nigga, I'm the nigga that they hot about. You pull up on me trippin', I'ma show you what you got about. Look, I'm gang sliding with the gang sliders. And all my niggas sliding with me with the gang violence. Clip hanging out the Glock like it's hang gliding. Gang product, when it come to poppin', I'm the main topic.
Now it said 107 got cracking in about 75, and members from 9 Deuce is the ones that cracked off 107 being set up. Now at this time we know this seemingly caused the friction between the Hoovers and the UGs. Like I said, UG started 9 Deuce, But when the Hoovers wanted to expand onto 107th, the UGs and the Blocks was not happy about that situation. Nonetheless, Moo Moo and 107 formed and became a top rival for not only Denver Lane, but all of the Rollin Hunters across Normandy as well. Now, the 107s are going to be one of only 2 Hoover sets that cross Vermont. Some will say 3, given the alliance between 5-1 and 5 Deuce. But really, as Hoover, 11 Deuce and 107 are the only 2 Hoover hoods that cross west of Vermont. The 107s going from 110th to Century between Normandy and Vermont. High spots, of course, 107, 109, and Budlong. I see a lot of activity from these dudes between Normandy and Vermont and around 101st, 102nd, and of course on Century. But in the pocket between 104th and 108th, Vermont, Hoover, and Barron Cross, not so much activity in these residential spots. The apartments really gonna be by 110th, 109th, 107th, Woodcrest, 106, all of that. It's all cracking. Now 18th Street, like we spoke about, they go from the 50s to the 100s. They stop at Century with the 9 Deuces. But the 107s are gonna share this hood with Southside Junior Mafia, which is gonna be a Hispanic gang that they get along with. And this is one of few allies that they also rock with that beef along with them with Cabrones, who we gonna speak on when we touch on 11 Deuce. Now, the situation with the 107s that we seen that a lot of people had questions about was the Crippin with the 107. So the way the OGs see this situation is Hoover is the evolution of Crippin. Some may say the evolution of Gangbangin, where they say they represent Crip, criminal, and Gangsta Crip all in one, but nothing comes before the H. So they say the Crippin has never went anywhere in any of these Hoover hoods, but the Young Life, of course, is really pushing that criminal because of mostly beefing with Crips. And at one point it said in the 90s, there was a subset of Hoover called Century Hoover over here by Hoover and Century Boulevard. Now, I don't know how many people was a part of that. I've only heard one individual bring up Century Hoover, but it was acknowledged as a faction of Hoover. Of course, it's not here today. All this area is gonna be 107 and across Century is 9 Deuce. But 107 historically is gonna be one of the most active Hoover sets out of all of them, and one of only 3 Hoover sets that are kind of gonna be sandwiched in between their enemies, with Denver Lanes to the southeast and the Hunters to the west. Now, like I said, this is the hood that kicked off the war with the Rollin Hunters, and they kicked off the war with the 9-0 Hoovers. So they also bear a lot of responsibility for how today's politics go. It said at one point they didn't even know the difference between 111 and 6-0. Like I said, everybody was cool at one point. The Hoovers, the A-Trays, and the 6-0s were cool. But when the Hoovers were beefing with the 111s, there was an account where the Hoovers were at a party with the A-Trays and some 6-0s was throwing up neighborhood. They didn't know how to differentiate 6-0 from 111. They just saw the neighborhood and got off on the 6-0s. So this is what I mean by the 9-0 Hoovers and the 107s playing a large role in the structure of LA's gangbanging today. But the 107s are also responsible for creating 11 Deuce Hoover, also known as the Laylos, in about 76, 77.
Just me and my niggas, stop and get a pom-pom. Corn dog had top switches with his own foot patrol. Smash gang, you wasn't with us. Bus full of go-getters. I was starting for bad for niggas. There's nothing but savage in us, but wasn't no savage in them. From stumping and dragging niggas, we came from rags to riches. Cause that shit hit different when you rap what you live.
You gotta do it right. Hoover it out, nigga. Westside criminals, dog.
Now, there's a lot of accounts about what the Laylos are and if they still are. Historically, we know it's 4 Trey to the one-way. The one-way being the Laylos on 111th Street. And they've supposed to go from 110th to Imperial between Normandy and Vermont. Now, Pimptown, not a factor, not there anymore. But the situation that I've seen with the Laylos is them really existing between the one-way and about 110th, maybe even 109th Street, really coexisting now with the Selos, because the Cabrones are definitely occupying these apartment buildings over here between 112th and 111th and Mariposa, Raymond Avenue, and Van Buren. They over there. all the way up to the one-way. I've seen the 11 Deuces, Bud Long in 111, New Hampshire, and right at that split where the one-way meets with Bud Long and those apartments right there on 110. A lot of people say the 11 Deuces are not here anymore because of the war with the Hundreds and the Denver Lanes, but they have made a lot of noise, and this is the section that truly got busy with 18th Street along with the 107s and 9 Deuces against the South Los. So South Los 13 had an extremely large hood expanding from the east side to the west side, coexisting in areas like the 107s, 11 Deuces, Paybacks, Broadways, and the 11A East Coast. Now there's multiple time frames as to when 11 Deuce started beefing with South Los, but I think about 89-90 is where it really cracked off over a dice game. And I've heard accounts of South Los tagging on the shirt of an 11 Deuce member's sister. But it said that around the time of that dice game, somebody from South Los had laid down 2 members from 11 Deuce in about 89 or 90. And of course, like we know the Hoovers to do, they got back cracking. But it said the full-fledged war really showed up in about 94. And in the mid to late 2000s, we see 18th Street and 11 Deuce clicking up, pushing back South Los and tag teaming on the Denver Lanes. But not only were the South Los beefing with these dudes on the west side, they was also beefing with 11A East Coast on the east side. And this is when South Los started really losing territory. Of course, the coast pushing them out of the east side. They was also beefing with Florencia and Gardena 13. So South Los was getting it from all sides, man. I'ma keep it real. But they for sure died down on the east side. And I don't believe they exist past the 105 either anymore. Not in Denver Lane Hood. And we know Pimptown did emerge near Imperial by the 11 Deuces. And it said that South Los today exists in a pocket within the Raymond Avenues. But it's also said, like I said, 11 Deuce Hoover doesn't have that many members left either. With, of course, the Selos being the strongest out of the two in the Gun and Hundreds. Now we know Jab 5 is really the biggest name coming out the Hundreds to the masses. But again, back in our Rollin' Hundreds video, we spoke about the murder of Cleveland Ross that happened over here at the AutoZone off Hoover and Century. Some dudes from UG was putting in work. They went down for multiple homicides, but a big name they took out was Cleveland Ross, aka Red Bang, on March 12th, 2015. Now, as we know, the Hoovers could arguably be the #1 get back gang in the city. They're sliding back regardless. And that's what happened 2 weeks after Red Bang was killed on Century and Hoover. So on the morning of March 31st, 2015, 2 members from 11 Deuce, Lil No Good and Ratneck, 8:30 in the morning, patrolling. They end up sliding down Budlong. Remember, the one-way goes right on Budlong. Sliding down Budlong till they got to 101st. This is Budlong Gangsta Crip, still a part of the Rollin' Hundreds. I seen somebody in the comments ask about Budlong Gangsters recently. They are part of the Rollin' Hundreds. They beef with the gangsters. They beef with the Hoovers, regardless of that GC at the end of their name. So this is the first stop for the Laylos. Now, I don't know why they chose 101st, but you know, you could easily go to 101st, get to Normandy, and just hit every block west of Normandy until you find something. I guess that may have been what they was thinking, and they found something on 101st that morning. It said they rolled up in a white van with paper plates on an older gentleman named Tyrone Golden. It said that they banged on Tyrone Golden, and he sadly responded and said he from Budlong Gangsters. And this is when No Good jumps out the van, did his shit, hitting Golden multiple times in the head over here, man, for the get back of Red Bang from Hoover. Now, later on, it said that the police is conducting an investigation that has nothing to do with this murder on the 101st. But when the murder happened, they did get a suspect vehicle out of it. While they doing this separate investigation, they come across the suspect vehicle, this white van, which is registered to Ratneck's girlfriend. They gaffle the van up and they find a credit card belonging to a female whose boyfriend is Monster from 107 Salo. Now, they did find a weapon in this van, but the weapon didn't match the murder weapon, so they don't have much yet. But they ended up coming up on a gym when Monster, aka Cleavon Stringer, went down on some unrelated drug charges. Now, he goes down, he turns state witness. It's over with. I don't know what this dude problem is. I know he's an older dude. He had nothing to do with this murder, presumably. Just because his girl credit card was in the trunk means nothing. But it said that he snitched for $5,700 and got put into witness protection and took the stand on his homies from 11 Deuce without even working out a deal in his own case. We knew he was gonna get one, but he was too eager to tell, man, and that's what he did. Nonetheless, No Good ends up getting hit with an L, and crazy enough, Williams was acquitted of first and second degree murder, even though his girl went down for an accessory. But for the people saying 11 Deuce ain't active, they sure did get they get back for their homie Red Bag against the Rollin Hunnids. Now, the crazy thing is, I have heard accounts that say Monster Kody, A-Tray's top member, was also from 11 Deuce. I don't know how true those accounts are, but we know the gangsters and the Hoovers, although there has been some back and forth a little bit, they still cool. So that's honestly nothing, especially at the time when those guys was outside. And this 11 Deuce area did come under scrutiny last year with a crazy case that saw a 22-year-old Raejonette Morgan get killed in what potentially is a mistaken identity case, where she was getting on the 105 from Imperial in Vermont, and a blue Honda pulled up on her and killed her on July 2nd of 2024. Now, we see things like this a lot in the city, and honestly, a lot of these things do happen around the Hoover hood. Now, I would say it's mostly due to the placement of where the Hoovers are, like I said, right in the middle of the city. But this was right outside of 11 Deuce section, and this case just got a $15,000 reward placed on it, and it's something that the city is going up about. But after 11 Deuce was formed, it said that 9 Deuce grows another leg, this time bleeding past the 110, again, still rolling in a pair with the 9-4 Hoovers, clicked up, repping 9 Deuce 4, also known as the Figgy Middy.
Cold road, if you slide, keep your heater tucked. Ops wanna web me up, the Johnnies wanna lock me up. Safe move, what you banging, what's your click, nigga? All of them, nigga, but the Snideys be the district. You catch me on Fig in the Nifties, they be tripping. Then I take a trip to the Quad, Sovereign ain't quiet. Next stop the 80s, where all matters, they be tripping. Snideys be the district, on gang, you need a heater.
Now, the 9-4s really came about in about 78. Again, this area also known as the Midwest, the Middies, or the Lowdowns. Hottest spot over here, Spring Street between 94th and Colden Avenue. Them apartments on Spring, the #1 no-go zone in the 9-4s. Now, technically, they're not on the east side. We know Main Street is the divider from the west to the east when talking technicalities, but it's always a good rule of thumb to say anything past the 110 is the east side. But this is Westside 9-4 Hoover, going from Manchester to Colden Avenue between the 110 and Main Street. Now, they also beef with the 8-7s right here. They beefing with some gangsters with the 8-7s and the 9-7s. And this beef with those two hoods allegedly is the reason why they dropped some of the Gangsta Crippin over here with the H gang. But like I spoke on numerous times, the 8-7s, really some prehistoric politics going on. They have some unnecessary beef. We know they move coast to coast, but they still beefing with Main Street. They beefing with the Hoovers, beefing with the Swans. It's just a lot going on over here with the 8-7s. But the 9-4s are an extremely active set, very close to 9A Main Street, 2 blocks over. And I say that because when I did the Main Street video, we spoke on Touche, Daquan Allen, who was killed on 88th and Broadway. That was really the first high-profile murder and the point of no return in the beef between Hoover and Main Street. But other spots that we see these dudes also, 90th to Patchy, 89th and to Patchy, and Grand Avenue, they gonna be all back here as well. This is not a large Hoover section, but I'm gonna add it's extremely dangerous on Spring Street and Colden, man. I'm gonna keep it 100. Now, the #1 name we may see coming out the 9-4s is Midwest Active. He's also rapping, and he put it on for 9-4 as well, along with that CEH Count Every Hoove movement. But like when Poke say, the 924 is pretty much the same thing. It's all connected, just like all the Hoovers are connected. But something we saw from the 9-4s, we seen multiple different things of them getting cracking. A crazy incident we seen with a member named G-Star from over here was back in 2020 when that dude was trying to catch 4 bodies in one night on the Denver lanes. That's the situation where dude hopped out them bushes like plies at a gas station on 110th and Fig. Now, remember, 2020, a crazy year for the Hoovers. Trey Soldier, T-Suppa, the back and forth murders, funerals being shot up, and the Hoovers still getting active on all of their enemies. We see 9-0s, Hunters, and the DLBs feeling the pressure. This dude jump out the bushes and point the gun at these dudes who are allegedly from Denver Lanes. It was 3 dudes, and they had the feet with him too. He draw down. At the same time he draw down, the police pull up. And man, the shots that they put up was precise as hell because he was standing in between 2 occupied vehicles about to start getting off, and they laid one straight to him. Now, I'm gonna keep it real. Them Denver Lane dudes was scared, man. They was, hey, rightfully so. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna keep it 100. It was about to be very bad for these dudes over here at this gas station because it looked like G-Star was really about to get on that. But the folks saved their life, man. And like I said in the beginning, accounts of people not caring whether they wrong or right about if these people is even their enemies. The 9-4s was also responsible for a murder on somebody that they knew wasn't even the enemy. Now, this happened on November 25th, 2013, when the 9-4s was hunting for the 9A main streets. Now, a dude named Kenneth Clay, aka KC, and Andre Jackson, both from 9-4 Hoover, were rolling with KC's sister and another dude named TF, who was also from Hoover. It said while they rolling down Century, they encounter a green Infiniti, which matched the description of somebody named Mondo and a whip that he usually be driving, a member from 9-8 Main. So it said when they got to Century and Hoover, they jump out and knock on the car window and they start woofing whatever. Maybe some words have changed. Maybe they banging on dude. It's not clear what's said at the time, but it said that a dude named Jared Crump was driving the car, not Mondo from 9-8 Main. And with the Hoovers knocking on his window, he kept driving west on Century. Now, the whole thing was KC's sister told them, hey, that's Wooty Woo from Main Street. They're like, yeah, that is him. That's the green Infiniti. When she made that statement, TF seen that they was about to get cracking and pulled a tray from Boys in the Hood talking about let me out. They let his weak ass out. You know it's already about to be bad if somebody asks to get out. He for sure gonna turn into some bad people at some point. But nonetheless, they let him out and ended up approaching this green Infiniti anyway on Century and Hoover. So when Crump drove off, he got to about Century and Vermont. It said before this, KC realized that it wasn't Mondo, it wasn't they man. But it seemed like he felt like he already went far enough. He'd already pulled the thing out. We got to get cracking regardless. He didn't care that this wasn't the dude from Main Street. Let off on him anyways over here on Century, Vermont, shooting him in the neck and killing him in this car, as well as hitting the female passenger that he was rolling with. Now, for some reason, they ended up getting back with that snitch that asked to get out the car, told him they had to slide. TF ended up turning into an informant, man. He told the police everything that happened that night, how KC's sister pointed out the green Infiniti, said it was them dudes from Main Street, and they proceeded to get cracking on the green Infiniti. And the crazy thing is, KC's sister also took the stand, man, resulting in a senseless murder. This one's senseless. This wasn't they man. And things like this is why people consider the Hoovers to be the most hated. But rest in peace to Jared Crump as well on that. But the 924s, Figgy middies, nothing to play with in this section. And the crazy thing is, when you on the east side over here, all of this is a heavy H-blank zone. You have Q102, 9-8 Main, 9-7, 8-7, 8-8 Hard Time, 9-7 East Coast, 8-4 Main Street. This whole area right here, they all moving together, pushing H-blank. That's the crazy part. This is why the activity's so high. But in this same year when 9-4 was set up, this is when it said 5 dudes Hoover, Gangsta Crip, got its start in the 50s.
ETG in the pit, the left made him shake. Told him take it off, this gun out one way. Free baby bug, infant hog, and baby bang. Tiny gunman on 50s, them the BG kids hit the double left. We made the car flip, knock, ding dong, and then we fell in.
Now, the key thing is, with the faux trade to the one-way thing, we got to get this out there. A lot of people say, yeah, the faux trade Hoover doesn't exist. No, it doesn't. But the Hoovers still go to the 40s. They don't just stop on 52nd. They still exist past the 50s into the 40s. This is why the faux trade to the one-way also still exists. There's some accounts that say these dudes go all the way to Vernon. That would technically be like 44th. So it's still the same shit. These dudes are still in the 40s. But the 5 Deuces is also called the Young Hogs. And again, with the start around 78, 79, primarily due to the Harvard Park Boys, who of course went on to become the Harvard Park Brims. Now this is the 5 Deuces' main rivals over here, with Slauson being the divider. Now we know 18th Street is also here, and the 50s overlap 2 different neighborhoods in LA, Vermont Slauson and Vermont Square. Now Vermont Slauson is going from Normandy to the 110 between 54th and Florence. Now we know this is the 512, 51 Troubles with the 5 Deuce Hoovers, 18th Street, the Menlos, Harvard Park, 2 sides of the Rolling 50s, 57 and 58, and Florencia is going to be over here as well. And Vermont Square is going to go from King to 54th between Van Ness and the 110, which is going to encompass, again, the 51 Troubles and the 5 Deuce Hoovers, along with VNG, Rolling 40s, and 18th Street. And Vermont Slauson on that most dangerous neighborhood list is gonna be number 6. Vermont Square, number 16. So these are still active areas that the Hoovers are controlling. But 5 Deuce and all is really gonna go from Vernon to Slauson between Vermont and the 110. And they gonna be clicked up with the 5-1 Trouble Gangsta Crips, who go from Western to Vermont between 50th and 54th. Main Street, of course, being Halldale, they on Budlong, in those alleyways for sure between 51st and 52nd. Now, some main blocks with the 5 Deuces are not just gonna be 52nd. They're gonna exist on 54th, 56th, 55th, 57th, and 58. And before they was Hoovers, they started off as the 50 Boys going against the Harvard Park Boys. Now, the key thing with this set is the Gangsta Crip. That's something that's even going on right now with the argument that the 5 Deuces having from LA to Texas, that whole situation. But with the 5 Deuce gangsters in LA, they said to have put the G on it, not because of the Broadways. Mind you, they cool with the 5 Deuce Broadways, but the Broadways wanted them to become Broadways. They didn't want to become Broadways. They wanted to be Hoovers. So they became 5 Deuce Hoover Gangsta Crip as somewhat of a rebellious act to have independency aside from the Broadways. And they said that they G didn't come from the Broadways being Gangsta Crips. It came from another crew around there called the Gladiators. And they said they kept the G on it because whether they was beefing with Crips or not, whoever they was beefing with, they wanted to keep their same identity, which is why they didn't turn criminals like the other Hoover sets in the city. Now, the 5 Deuces are another point of relationships with neighborhood Crips. They had a party house over here on the 50s where it said that they was cool with the East Coast like other Hoover sets were, and they was cool with the 6-0s. But like everything happens, some fights over women between both East Coast and 6-0 led to the 5 Deuces falling out with both of those neighborhood Crip sets as well. And these parties in the 50s is what also led to the Quintuple Murder that transpired against the 5 Deuces. Now, this was all the way back in the 80s, but when 5 people get killed and another 5 hit, it's damn near gonna be up forever. And that's what we see with this situation where the 5 Deuces was going at it with the VNGs. Of course, we know, like we said, the Brims, they first enemies. So this is no surprise. Back in 84, when some 5 Deuces tried to catch Ase Kapone from VNG slipping and ended up yanking his whip. Now, Ace ended up sliding back to the 50s the next day where there was a party going on, and it said that about 50, 60 people was standing outside. Ase Kapone, one of his homies, jumped out with the shotty and a high caliber rifle, start letting off on everybody that was hanging outside the party, killing 5 people and hitting 5 more. But the crazy thing is, Ase Kapone was back in his hood after this, bragging about the situation, and a member from Black P-Stone overheard him saying how he got down on the Hoovers brim style. And the dude from BPS ended up snitching on him. Now, we know the BPS and the Hoovers, they have been known to be cool. So I don't know if that came into play, if the dude from BPS was like, hey, them is the homies, but that's what happened over here in the 5 Deuces. Now we know a lot of rappers and notable people come out the 50s, from T-Rail, H-Crown, Sharky, Schoolboy Q. The new shit I've been liking though, BMG D-Mac and that BMG movement, man. That's that shit. A lot of people say it's the Hoovers version of Bino, but it got some other shit on it, man. I appreciate what they doing over here with the music in the Westside 50s.
Rich kid, you the one, hell yeah. Boy, you got them bands, hell yeah. You gon' spend it on a bitch, hell yeah. Every week I pay for hair and pay for nails.
But regardless, they do have their hands full with beef in this section, with the 50s and the brims being across Vermont and Slauson, and with the rolling 40s and the 30s over here. We know the VNGs are really close to the 5-1s across Western, and this is definitely one of the most active areas for the Hoovers. Now, we have to speak on that situation where we've seen the Avalons talking about the Hoovers, you know, that's bunk. They not beefing with the Avalons, none of that. Like I said, historically, they've been known to be cool with the gangsters. It ain't none of that. That was some other shit that played out, and they got shut down properly by Cartoon. But the 50s, of course, is going to be the closest to these East Coast hoods as well. Down Slauson with the 6-pack, predominantly 6 Deuce and 5-9 East Coast. So the 50s have seen a lot in the war. But the last hood to form in the Hoovers, in the area where there used to be 5-9 brims, is the Nina Rosses, 5-9 Hoover criminal gang.
Think I hit the crib and stack my chips. It's Hoover gang 716. Look,
made 100K in a day off of Miz. And I ain't playing with these kids. It's a 30 in that Glock, but I don't need all them shots. Hit that boy 4 times. How you get up?
Now the 5-9s have been said to have lost some territory over the years due to Hoover Park. We know Hoover Park is crazy active, and the turn of the newest neighborhood Crip set in the rolling 70s, the 6-7s and the Menlos. This has caused the 5-9s to kind of stop at Hoover, going from Slauson to Gage between Hoover and the 110. Now they are here on 60th, 59th Place, 59th Street, Denver Ave, 62nd, and we do see these dudes in the 5-1 Deuces as well. But this is the newest set, and I would say, aside from 11 Deuce, probably the smallest. Maybe 11 Deuce being smaller than 5-9, but nonetheless, these dudes still active too. Now, I've seen a lot of accounts saying that this is a set with the most Hispanic members in it, 5-9. A lot of these sets, man, LA gonna have Hispanic members in a grip of their sets, man. That's just what it is. But it said these dudes jumped off between 80 and maybe 81, and they were cool with 6 Deuce East Coast around the time of their inception. But the 5-9 Hoovers did not come from the 5-9 brims. The brims never just turned Hoovers. 5-9 Hoover just formed over here. And 5-9 was, of course, cool with the Menlos and with the Harlems as well at one point. But this situation with the Menlos, man, is really heating up. Like I said, especially with them being the newest piece of the neighborhood Crip car. The Menlos have had many different identities. I believe repping neighborhood, then repping gangster, then repping neighborhood again. Correct me if I'm wrong. There may have been 2 stints of pushing neighborhood with the Menlos, but nonetheless, we know where they align with now. They pushing Ace Blank like crazy. And even though they don't have a large set and they're surrounded by enemies, they be putting it down. And we have seen the Hoovers click up with the A-Trays to patrol this Menlo area as well. We see Mad North from A-Tray with some dudes from Hoover patrolling the Menlos, man. So we know what does go down in this section. Now, some dudes from 5-9 did make the news on a flock team out in Palm Desert, out there by Palm Springs, where they tried to hit the jewelry store last year and all got gaffled up. Now, it was some people from 5-9. I also heard some people from A-Tray Hoover was involved in that as well. But they went to the IE, try to get cracking, and ended up coming back with some $2.5 million bills, some crazy shit. So again, no matter what is being said, these areas are still cracking. All 8 of these Hoover sets are still going up, man. Now, I don't know if anybody rapping or really representing 5'9", like people represent the other Hoover sets. I heard it's a dude named S.A. Face. If y'all know any rappers coming out of 5'9", put them down in the comments, shout them dudes out, send them the video, get them cracking. But either way, this is what's going on with the Hoovers. Again, the glue to the city. 8 sets going up against at least 45 different hoods, still putting it down, sliding, getting their get back, taking losses and giving them too. It's a reason why they're the most hated, man. Rest in peace to everybody that had lost their life in these wars, man, through all these hoods. Make sure y'all keep their legacies going, man. Run the music up, run the streams up. Stay tapped in. Like, comment, and subscribe to this, man. It's Rap News Street Politics. We out.
Homies from the other side, I fuck with them crippers. You know that I'm thugging, better know that I'm criminal. Never trust a snake, I gotta keep me a weapon. You better hope I don't hit you, you better hope it's like this. Money on my mind, I gotta flip me a script. Never change for the money, I'ma stick to the script. Asking for a hand, don't make you look like a bitch. I won't change on the game.